It's okay to be negative when something goes wrong, but not for more than 5 minutes. And I was taught in my Cutco training on day 2 that you set your timer for 5 minutes when you encounter adversity, a challenge, disappointment, a failure, whatever. And you give yourself 5 minutes to feel all of your emotions. Bitch, moan, complain, cry, vent, punch a wall, whatever you got to do. Don't bottle them up. Don't pretend everything's okay. Feel it fully. But then we were taught when the timer goes off after 5 minutes, you say 3 very powerful words, which to this day, I say these all the time. Can't change it. Right? Can't change it. It's not that I can't change anything, but it's that I can't change what already happened. I can't go back in time. Can't change it. And that's an acknowledgement that we can't change the past. So there's no value in dwelling on it and creating this inner emotional turmoil, wishing that reality were different.
Born in 92 on the block with the Sharks. Come from a different cloth, y'all would get ripped apart. You want it diamond, then you gotta get it in the dark. We dropping nuggets like Carmelo went to Rucker Park. Now we eating from state to state, we scrape the plate. I put my eggs in a basket, took a leap of faith. I took a chance, now we grow and see the impact. Decoding success with special guests, now let's bring Matt.
Hal, welcome to Decoding Success. We were just having some good laughs before diving into this. Really excited to have you. Your journey is absolutely incredible. Your body of work is even more incredible. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Dude, it is my pleasure. And when you described your audience, your listeners, I thought, oh, that's my perfect, like that's who it's really my message, my audience as well. So excited for this, man.
I love that. I love that. Now, many people know of your journey, including the accident that you were in that really drastically changed your life.
Yeah.
And we could dive into that a little bit, but I actually want to talk about your mindset. And I actually have the movie on right now, the Miracle Morning movie, literally right next to me. It's actually
Nice.
Paused on your face as you're meditating because I didn't want you to be able to pick up the audio. But one thing that I learned from reading your work from this movie and beyond was your mindset after the accident. And I'm specifically referring to the medical professionals that were working on you saying to your family and the people close to you, Hal, like, I don't know if something is like off with Hal. Like he's just really positive and he's not supposed to be because of what he just experienced. Like I want to dive into that and understand where that comes from for you.
Yeah. So I came out of the coma. I was, hit head on by a drunk driver at 70 miles an hour, broke 11 bones, dead for 6 minutes, came out of a coma 6 days later. And I was told I would never walk again. And I suffered permanent brain damage. I had 11 broken bones. And, I don't care what age you are, like that's hard to hear and your mind is racing going, well, what does this mean? Like I'm going to be in a wheelchair the rest of I'm 20 years old. I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life. What? And, I had learned something a year and a half prior called the 5-minute rule. And here's how this rolled out. So my dad comes into the hospital room about a week after I was out of the coma. So I was in a coma for 6 days, out of the coma, had about a week to process what was going on. I'm in a hospital bed. I can't walk. My left arm's broken. I can't move that. And my dad comes in. He had met with the doctors that day with my mom. And he said, Hal, hey, I want to talk to you. The doctors are really concerned. And I was like, uh-oh, what news did you just get? And he basically explained they were actually concerned with my mindset. They thought that I was in denial. They told my mom and dad, they said, look, it's not normal for a 20-year-old young man to act the way Hal is acting. He's always smiling and laughing and joking and making us laugh. And they said, that's not normal for, someone that's being told you're never going to walk again. So they said, well, we believe he's in denial, or he's delusional in some way, and he's just not facing reality, and he's kind of checked out. And so my dad said, Hal, it's okay. The doctor said it's normal for you to go through a process of feeling sad and scared and angry, but you need to admit it. You need to face this reality. How are you really feeling? And, my dad was like, he was emotional, like trying to, talk through this, and he's holding back tears. And I really went inside and thought about it. Am I sad? Am I scared? Am I depressed? Am I angry with the drunk driver, which was another thing that the doctor suggested was normal, quote unquote, right? Normal. And I looked at my dad. I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, Remember, I lived my life by the 5-minute rule that I learned a year and a half prior in my Cutco sales training. I was one of Cutco's top sales reps the night I was hit by the drunk driver. I'd given a speech at a conference. And I said, remember, I live by the 5-minute rule. And he said, remind me what that means. And I think I honestly joked. I said, Dad, you and Mom would be so much happier if I've told you guys this like a million times, but okay, here you go. It's okay to be negative when something goes wrong, but not for more than 5 minutes. And I was taught in my Cutco training on day 2 that you set your timer for 5 minutes when you encounter adversity, a challenge, disappointment, a failure, whatever. And you give yourself 5 minutes to feel all of your emotions. Bitch, moan, complain, cry, vent, punch a wall, whatever you got to do. Don't bottle them up. Don't pretend everything's okay. Feel it fully. But then we were taught when the timer goes off after 5 minutes, you say 3 very powerful words, which to this day, I say these all the time. Can't change it. Right? Can't change it. It's not that I can't change anything, but it's that I can't change what already happened. I can't go back in time. Can't change it. And that's an acknowledgement that we can't change the past. So there's no value in dwelling on it and creating this inner emotional turmoil, wishing that reality were different. And what I learned is that when it's painful emotions are all self-created by our resistance to our reality. It's wishing and wanting that something were different that is now out of our control. Whether that's past, present, or future. If there's something in the future or going on in the world that's happening, in somebody else's life or across the world, like we can't change it. So the only choice we have is, okay, how am I going to respond to this? Am I going to allow this circumstance that's in the past now to cause me to feel angry and depressed? Am I going to dwell on this? Am I going to wish it were different? Am I going to resist reality? Or the opposite, the alternative is, or I'm going to accept it unconditionally. Life is what it is. Whatever happened, happened. I can choose to be, and this is what I realized, I can choose to be the happiest and the most grateful I've ever been while I'm enduring the most difficult time in my life. And they don't have to be mutually exclusive. And so I said, Dad, if I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life, I'll be the happiest, most grateful person you've ever seen in a wheelchair. But I'm not willing to accept that as my fate until there's no other option. Until then, I'm visualizing that I'm going to walk again every single day. I am praying that I will walk again every day. I am maintaining unwavering faith in that possibility while I simultaneously accept that it might not happen, and I will be at peace if that is the case. And my dad went back to the doctors. I don't think they believed it. They thought, your son is still delusional. This isn't normal. 1 week after that conversation, the doctors came in with routine x-rays and they said, we don't know how to explain this, Hal, but your body is healed so quickly that we're going to let you take your first step tomorrow in therapy.
Wow. And
which I did. And it went from never walking again to 3 weeks after I was found dead, after my femur broke in half, my pelvis broke in 3 places, right? That I took my first step. And for me, that's where that mindset came from. Is I learned it when I was very fortunate that when I was 19, I learned every painful emotion you've ever experienced in your life, or that you could ever experience in the future, that you're experiencing now, is self-created. The way to transcend emotional pain is to accept life exactly as it is, stop resisting reality, and be at peace with the things you can't change, and then focus all of your energy into the things that you can change.
I love this. So, Hal, the first question that comes to mind based off of this story is, what's your advice for the people that are tuned into this to not let the conditioning of the people around us penetrate us and impact our belief system, right? Because you could have very well given into what the doctors were considering norm, right? And this even goes beyond that, right? Like our parents can want us to be safe, so don't start that business, go to the traditional route. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, people can project onto us. How do we not let that penetrate what we truly believe? Yeah,
I think it's a matter of making a decision. In fact, this is one of my affirmations. It was a long time ago. I don't say it anymore because it's hardwired now. But I will never let the limiting beliefs of other people limit what's possible for me. Right? I will never let the limiting beliefs of other people limit what's possible for me. And I think we're very influenced by others. Someone says, you can't do this. You're like, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I can't. They don't know. Well, who are they? And that's actually one thing I told my dad. I think it was that same conversation. I said, Dad, the doctors might be experts in medicine, but they're not experts in me. They have no idea what I'm capable of. And I would say the same thing to you listening. your parents, your, friends, your family, right? Any authority, perceived authority figures. We've been conditioned, and this is, I don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but this is very related. We've been conditioned since childhood, not for critical thinking, right? But for obeying authority. Do what you're told. Why? Because I said so. Listen to your teachers. Are they qualified? Maybe they have a degree, right? Well, but did you interview them? Do you know, mom and dad, do you know their values? Do you know their track record? Do you know what they're like in their personal life? Do you know what their level of personal, do you know, like the business teacher that's teaching me business? Do they have a successful business? Right? And we're taught, no. Just don't question, just obey. And so I'm really big on, not that I'm like some anarchist, I respect everyone, but deciding that someone else, because they have a lab coat on, right? Or they've got a title, or they've got an acronym after their name, right? PhD or whatever, deciding that they somehow have more domain or more influence or more expertise over you than you do, to me is insane. And so, so I mean, that's it, is you've got to decide that, hey, I am just, here's another one. My favorite affirmation: I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable of anything that another human being has done, and I will prove it. Right? I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable of anything another human being has done, and I will prove it. So we have to adopt this limitless mindset that there is nothing outside of physical limitations, right? Like if you're, 5 feet tall, maybe you won't slam dunk a basketball, but in terms of what you're capable of, in terms of everything you want to create for your life, there are no limits except those you place on yourself. And so don't let somebody else's limiting beliefs limit what's possible for you.
I love this. Now, in regards to your specific mindset at the time of the accident, and even up till, to this point, if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, Hal, like, fuck, my mindset's totally different, and it might be a negative mindset, what's the process of reversing it? Is it as simple as the 5-minute rule?
So I think that there's a few pieces here, and I'll share with you when I started. So I was 19 years old. I was a DJ on 97.1 FM. That was my dream. It was my second radio station. I was following this path to be a nationally syndicated radio DJ. One of my college buddies convinced me to go in for an interview for Cutco. I had told him for like months and months and months, dude, I am not a salesperson. Like, I don't want to sell anything. And, but he finally convinced me, just go in, humor me, go for an interview. I'm like, all right. Anyway, I got really excited. I was like, wow, there's like no ceiling on your income. This is a commission position, so I can earn whatever I want versus I'm making like $10 an hour at the radio station. Like I'm limited. I have no control over my income. And I really got attracted to that idea of there's no ceiling on my income in sales. So I go through training, and here's what I want to say. My entire life up until that point, I was very mediocre, meaning I didn't get good grades. I wasn't an athlete. I didn't excel at anything in my life other than, being a radio DJ. That was pretty cool, but I didn't work hard. I mean, I got kind of lucky, whatever. I went and interviewed, I got the job. But the point is, my mindset was not the way it is now. That was the defining moment when I was 19 years old. And on my second day of training, I learned about this thing called the Fast Start Contest. It was the first 10 days in your Cutco career where there was all sorts of, only for 10 days, there was all sorts of incentives and reward levels, things that were designed to get a new sales rep motivated to work really, really hard for the first 10 days, like a sprint, so that you develop some confidence in yourself. And on day 2 of training, we learned about the highest level in the Fast Start, which was the record, the most anyone in 50 years in the company had ever sold. And I don't know what happened, but for me, Matt, I want to share this because it's one of the most important beliefs I believe for all of us to adopt. And it answers your question. I went, wait a minute. If this other person had sold $12,137 at Cutco in 10 days, why not me? They're just a human being that was born a baby, learned to walk, showed up at a Cutco interview. I'm guessing they had no experience selling kitchen cutlery before their interview, just like me, but they worked really, really hard for 10 days and they tapped into something that we all have, this unlimited potential, and they made it happen. So I went to my manager after the interview. After training, I said, I want to break the record. And he said, Hal, I hear that all the time, but no one's willing to put forth the effort. And again, Matt, I want to highlight, I got really intimidated because I went, I'm not a hard worker. I am lazy as they come. But I said, you know what? I'll follow your lead. I will do whatever it takes for 10 days. I'm committed for 10 days to be unlike I've ever been before. I'm going to decide to be disciplined. I've never been that before. I'm going to decide to work hard. I've always avoided that. I'm going to go for it. And in that, I think it's Tony Robbins that says, in our moments of decision, our destiny is shaped. It was when I made a commitment on day 2 of training to my manager, my mentor, Jesse. I said, Jesse, I will do whatever it takes for 10 days to break this record. And it was in those 10 days, I felt like quitting. I felt like giving up. I had all sorts of failure. 20 customers did not buy from me during those 10 days. But I kept going. I kept going. And so again, if you're listening, realizing that if another human being has done something, that's evidence of what's possible for you. It goes back to that mindset of limitlessness. There's nothing that you can't do. It's a matter of getting clear on what you want, owning your inherent abilities that you can do anything, and then setting a time frame. Okay, for the next, just work in those sprints. It's hard to commit for a year. A year is a long time, but 10 days, 1 week, maybe a month, a 30-day challenge, right? I usually focus on 30-day challenges. Commit. What are you going to do for 30 days that's going to move you in the direction of your goals, your dreams, everything that you want to be for your life? And if you do that, 30 days from now, you are a different version of the person that is listening to this right now.
I love that. Now, what comes to mind right away is if someone does go through a 10-day or a 30-day challenge and they see themselves changing, but that change is uncomfortable because they're wired to believe that they're not worth it. What's your advice there?
The fact that you said it is expected, right? It is expected. Is that, and that's why I say one of my favorite affirmations that I said a few minutes ago, to me, this is like the foundational, and it answers what you just said, which is, I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable of everything I want as any other person on earth. That is foundational. Because if you operate from that paradigm, you go, okay, well, I'm just as worthy. Okay, so that addresses what you just said, right? Is, well, it's uncomfortable because I don't think I'm worthy. No, you're just as worthy. Why are you less worthy than another human being, right? I believe we're all born with this inherent worthiness. So you're just as worthy, you're just as deserving, right? Which kind of goes hand in hand with worth. And then you're just as capable. And again, you have to, I think part of that is realizing that your capabilities are not defined by your past. They are defined by your potential. And I think that we tend to define them by our past. In the Miracle Morning, right? In my book, I called it rear view mirror syndrome, which is that we've got this rear view mirror stuck in our subconscious. And whenever we're faced with a challenge or an opportunity, unconsciously, we check the rear view. It's almost like more of an emotional thing, right? You check the rear view, you go, I've never done this before. I've never worked hard. I've never overcome this. Right? And so there's this instant, I can't do it. And that's why for me, the foundational affirmation is no. You have to affirm every day your inherent worth, that you are just as worthy, deserving, and capable. And if you do it every single day, at first it might feel phony. At first it might be like, yeah, I'm affirming this, but I don't really believe it because my past, I sucked in the past, blah, 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 right? You've got to keep affirming it until you embody it, until you become acclimated to this new paradigm. And then one day you'll wake up and all of a sudden an opportunity will come your way and you'll go, you know what? Without even thinking, you'll unconsciously go, I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable as any other person, and I will prove it, right? And that was that decision I made on my second day of training. And everyone has that ability to make that decision every single day. And they say fake it till you make it. I think that's a fair strategy. I think it doesn't feel authentic to embody a paradigm in the beginning that you've never embodied before, because it's not who you've been, right? It's one of the hardest things to do is to show up and to see ourselves as different than we've been in the past. We're stuck in that rear view, right? But if you got to start somewhere. And if you consistently every day, it's kind of like I told my wife this morning, she was asking me she's listening to a book I recommended called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, which I highly recommend. And she was asking me about one of the chapters. She said, it talks about opening your heart, but I don't get that. Like, how do you keep your heart open? And I said, sweetheart, the only way to do it is through daily training. During my Miracle Morning, I'm embodying the mindset, the emotional states that I want to embody always And in the beginning, they're always foreign. They're always uncomfortable. They don't resonate as authentic because they're new. But just like exercising, the first day you lift a weight, you're like, dude, I am weak. Just like the first day you try to embody an emotional state, you go, I am weak at this. This is not feel real. But if you keep gradually, day by day by day, you wake up 30 days from now and you go, dude, I'm actually embodying my inherent worth. I'm actually believing that my capabilities are limitless. I'm a different person. I see the world through new eyes, and I'm going to start living in alignment with the way that I see myself.
What about those that experience a lack of patience or expect, and when I say those, me, you know, when it comes down to instant gratification and someone's maybe partaking in, you know, the Miracle Morning or 75 Hard or a challenge like that. And they're like, you know what, I just did 30 days and I don't really feel any different. Or like, what's your advice for those types of people?
Yeah, I think that that's something that human nature, we all deal with a lack of patience. You know, we want what we want and we want it now, right? And what happens is because we live in this delusional state, and it's usually unconscious, right? But you see someone that has what you want, right? They're living the life that you want. They're achieving the success that you want. They've got the marriage that you want, whatever. And you go, I want that. But our brain doesn't do a good job of being realistic around the time frame it takes, right? It's like, I want that. And the brain just says, now, right? Like, want that now. And so most people, what happens is, I call it the infatuation period, where when an idea is new and exciting, you can give it a shot, right? I'm going to do it. It's new, it's exciting, right? And in the Miracle Morning, there's a chapter called From Unbearable to Uncomfortable to Unstoppable. And I break down a 30-day challenge in these 10-day phases, where the first 10 days, and it's not an exact science, it could be the first 3 days or the first 15 days or whatever, but roughly the first third, the first 10 days feel unbearable, right? It's this new thing. I'm not used to getting up any earlier. I'm not used to, I used to hate running. And then because I hated running, I thought, what if I committed to run 52 miles in one day? I know this sounds insane. It started with 26. Actually, it started with a 5K. Then once I wrapped my head around a 5K, I'm like, well, maybe I'll do a half marathon. Then once I wrapped my head around the half marathon, this was like over a few weeks, I go, well, why don't I just do a full marathon? But then I had a friend that did an ultra marathon, 52 miles. And I went, well, if he could do it, I could do it. It goes back to that belief, right? If he could do it, I could do it. But I wasn't a runner. And what I realized is that that's a limiting belief. Like, I'm not a morning person, which a lot of people adhere to. That's not a fact. That's a limiting belief. If you haven't in the past woken up intentionally or any earlier than you have to, well, then of course you're not a morning person. Just like I had never run before, so I wasn't a runner. Then one day I committed to go jog for half a mile. It was my first day of training, and it was really, really hard. But the second day was a little bit easier. It was still, it kind of felt unbearable. It was in those first 10 days, right? Those first 10 days, it felt unbearable. But after 10 days, I went, I'm actually becoming a runner because I'm running. You wake up a little earlier each day, you become a morning person, right? So we have these limiting beliefs that it's this fixed mindset. It's like, no, just take one foot in front of the other, just lean into the change. So those first 10 days might feel unbearable, but if you know going into it that, okay, is it worth it for me to become the person that I need to be to create everything else I want for my life? Is it worth 30 days of waking up a little bit earlier? Is, completing this 52-mile ultra marathon, is it worth 30 days of, going for a jog every day? Only you can decide that, right? Is the life of your dreams worth 30 days where the first 10 days are unbearable, the next 10 days are uncomfortable, and at some point in those final 10 days, you wake up and that new thing, that new habit, that what felt unbearable on day one, you become unstoppable because it now becomes part of who you are. You become acclimated and it is just effortless. And that to me, you got to decide for you, but that to me is where I live my life in 30-day challenges. Every 30 days, I go, what's one new way of thinking, new way of being, new habit, new behavior that I'm committed to adopting in my life so that I can become the version of me that can create everything else that I want.
I love that. But it brings me to ask, you talk about these habits or, routines becoming a part of you. Have you ever personally experienced, maybe going through the miracle morning or another, routine or whatever it is, and you missing something and then kind of feeling like, all right, this day is fucked?
Yeah. So I have a philosophy around that, which is never let one bad day turn into two.
Okay.
What ends up happening is very often we commit to something, right? We start out with the infatuation period I talked about, where you're like, I'm going to do it, right? Like, everybody's all excited when it's conceptual. It's really easy to be like excited, overconfident when it's conceptual, when there's no actual effort needed just to think about the idea, right? So what happens is at some point, typically during those first 10 days, you end up missing a day. And what often we do is you go, I knew it. I'm a loser. I suck. I don't have the discipline to do this. Who am I kidding? Right. In fact, when I was selling Cutco, my very first day, like I only had 10 days to break a record. I had to average. So the record was $12,000. I had to average over 1,200, basically 1,300 a day, every single day. So my very first day, I went out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to schedule appointments with the 3 people that I think are most likely to buy in my network. Right. And so I got the best chance of getting started, and I've got to get to at least 1,300 just to even be on pace. Right. And I went 0 for 3 that day. I went 0 for 3. I sold 0. And I called my manager, Jesse, and I was like tail between my legs. I was humiliated. I was ready to give up. I'm like, who am I kidding? I talked a big game. I thought I could do it, but reality sets in. I am not capable of anything, right? My past shows me that. I'm a mediocre student. I'm a mediocre athlete. And now day one just proved I am a mediocre Cutco sales rep. I'm destined to be mediocre probably for the rest of my life. That's how I felt. And I called Jesse and I said, hey, and he's all fired up. How did it go? Tell me, right? I go, dude, I didn't sell anything, man. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think doesn't look like, I said, it doesn't look like I'm breaking the fast start record. And he said, okay, Hal, I get that you're disappointed. I said, yeah. He said, there's one of 2 ways you can respond right now. I said, okay, I'm listening. He said, number 1, you can give into your disappointment and you can quit. That's probably what you feel like doing. Am I right? I said, yes, 100%. He said, there's a second option. I said, okay. He said, and if you give into option number 1, you will then, you'll reinforce that you are a quitter, that when you experience adversity, you give up. Do you want to reinforce that? I said, no. What's option number 2? He said, you could do the only thing that a successful person would do in this case, which is they would put the past behind them and get on the phone and let go. Again, can't change it. Let go of what you can't change and focus all your energy on what you can change. You can get on the phone right now. You can schedule more appointments for tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. That's all you can control. And you can go out and you can let the averages work out. And maybe tomorrow you'll sell, double. Who knows, right?
Right.
He said, and I was like, he goes, do you want to be successful in life? I said, of course. He said, then right now is your opportunity to do what a successful person would do. I was like, son, okay, damn, man. All right. But it makes so much sense. Like he hit me emotionally, but he hit me logically. Right. And those kind of go hand in hand. I was like, he's right. If giving up doesn't benefit me at all, it's what I feel like, and I've adhered to this idea that those who do what they feel like don't do much, because human nature is to do what's easy. It's to avoid discomfort, right? That's human nature. If you want to be successful, you have to override this inborn human nature, and you have to, because humans are programmed to survive, not thrive, not be successful. We are programmed to do the minimum required to not starve to death and not run out of water. You know what I mean? And I think that in the past, if you were a hunter, you hunted the buffalo, and then that was enough to eat for however long, and you probably just chilled, right? You didn't go be like, hey, I want to get more buffaloes than the other guy. It's like, no, you were just the minimum needed to survive. So that's how we're hardwired. And millions of years of evolution, we have to make a conscious decision to kind of override that. And so I got back on the phone, and to wrap the story up, I scheduled 10 appointments for the next day. I was like, I'm talking like 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. Driving around town all day. And I sold not kidding, $2,768. So I made 7 sales. So I basically just slightly more than doubled the day before. And I was back on track. And, and then on the final day, going into that last day, I was still over $1,100 away from the goal. I was scared to death. I was like, oh my gosh, it's make or break. And I ended up selling $4,000 the last day. And it was like, $15,000 for the fast start, in the record books or whatever. But that is from someone that, again, I didn't go into this an achiever. Like, we all know people that, have always been successful. They were successful in school. They were great at sports. They were like, right. If you weren't that guy or gal, like I wasn't that guy or gal, this is your moment, right? Like any moment, you get to decide, who am I going to be from this moment on? My past does not define my future, but my potential can, and it will.
Mm. How was Hal at 20 years old at that point in your life defining success versus how you're defining success today?
Then it was very much what America teaches us is success, right? Which is, our cultural, our celebrity culture, all of the success culture, money culture. I'm glad you asked this question, but it was very much, I want to make a bunch of money. I want to be a millionaire. That was my goal. I remember when I started selling Cutco, I was making a bunch of money and I go, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 25, right? I was 20 or 19 when I started. And when I was 25, I don't think I even had $100,000 saved. I was like, okay, by the time I'm 30, when I was 30, still wasn't there, right? But then I had a daughter and then I got really serious. And then 5 years later, I achieved that goal. But the way I defined success then, it was, again, very materialistic. Now I would define success based on fulfillment and impact. To me, it's how happy are you? Because if you have all the money in the world and you're miserable, I could hardly call that successful, right? So how happy, how fulfilled is your life? And then number 2, what kind of impact are you making in the lives of other people? How are you serving those you love, those you lead, and humanity? And I will say this, I believe money, based on the way our society is set up, is part of all of that. One of my affirmations that I wrote, like, I don't even know, when I started Miracle Morning, like 10 years ago, was I'm committed to becoming wealthy because I know the more money I make, the more resources and options I'll have available to me, and the more people I can help. So like I was able to tie income and impact in from an early age. And the beauty of that is, if you have this mission to help as many people as you possibly can, if your impact vision is limitless, right? Then that's going to drive you long after you've reached the income goals you have. Because here's what happens. If all you're focused on is making money, well, once you start making enough money to pay all your bills and live comfortably, well, what's driving you to make more money? Right? Unless it's, I want to make more money than anybody else. I have a friend who his goal was $100 million net worth. Where first it was 1 million, then it was 10, then it was 100, right? And he's achieved all of these goals. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing still working? Like, you have 2 small kids. If I were you, I would be retired. Like, you have enough investments, you never have to work again. And it took a while, but I kept badgering with this. And now he's finally like stepping back and not working so much, right? But if your goal is impact and you want to, like for me, my goal was to change 1 million lives one morning at a time when the Miracle Morning came out. Once we sold 1 million copies, I had to change the goal, right? I was like, well, okay, we hit that goal. Now it's to elevate the consciousness of humanity one morning at a time. And so the way that I view it is, we've reached, a few million people with the Miracle Morning books. That means there's about 7 billion people that still need what I know can help them. And now I'm on this lifelong mission that until the day that I die, I will be sharing the Miracle Morning with as many people as I possibly can.
That's a beautiful thing, without a doubt. I'm curious. I know you hop on podcasts left and right. What's a question you wish more people would ask you?
I love that one. What is a question? The last one was a good one about how I defined success when I was 20 versus now. Give me a second to think about that.
By all means. And I'll let you know, we typically open the show up for 200 plus episodes asking how someone would personally define success. So I actually kind of strayed away from it for a little bit because I didn't want to be so repetitive.
Yeah,
You know, when you're that many episodes into a podcast, it's like, damn, can I keep asking this? But I mean, you can, because everyone defines it differently, and it's a beautiful thing. But yeah.
Here's how I'll answer that. And I'm sure I could, you know, if we did 100 interviews, I could probably answer it, you know, 50 different ways or 100 different ways. But the question I would ask is, Hal, what do you believe people should focus on right now? When the pandemic hit right around, you know, March 2020, that was the question that I asked. I think all of us were bombarded with things to focus on that were out of our control, like a pandemic. I don't know about you. No one has control over, you know, the pandemic, right? People losing their jobs, all this division, politics, all these things. Right. The thing is, when we focus on that which is out of our control, we feel out of control. I want you to think about that. How much time do you spend focusing on things that you do not have direct control over? Now, that could even be in your own personal life, like the past. How many of us are focused on what just happened or what happened last week, last month, last year? We don't have control over that. It already happened, right? How about other people in your life, your spouse, your kids, people on Facebook or Twitter that are spouting political opinions that are, you know, that just trigger you and that are not what you agree with? You don't have control over them. When we focus on that which is out of our control, we feel out of control. And feeling out of control is what leads to anxiety and leads to fear and leads to depression. So the question, okay, so what should we focus on? I believe that the most important thing for us to focus on is ourselves. It's how can we optimize ourselves, and specifically our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual states, so that we can be at our best for those that we love, for those that we lead, for humanity, and of course, for us, for ourselves, right? But to me, that's what the Miracle Morning is. The Miracle Morning is a daily ritual that you do every day. You don't have to get up super early. It's not the 5 a.m. club. If you wake up normally at 7, get up at 6:30. Like, it's not a big stretch. Get up half an hour earlier, dedicate time to the Miracle Morning, which is, you know, meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling. And starting your day with those practices that the world's most successful people have sworn by for centuries, that will enable you to be in a peak physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state, so that you show up to your day as the best version of yourself, a better version of who you were when you went to bed the night before. And now that affects everything. It affects how you feel. You're happier, you're more confident, you're more motivated, you're more energized, you're at peace, right? It affects what you do. You have more discipline, you're more productive, you make a bigger impact in the world, right? That to me is, what should we focus on? We should focus on optimizing ourselves every single day, first thing in the morning, so that we're at our best for every aspect of our life.
I love that. Now, Hal, I know I only got you for a couple more minutes. I want to let everyone know that all of websites, socials, where people can get the book, all of that good stuff will be in the show notes of this episode. You have anything going on that we should make people aware of before I squeeze one last question out of you?
Yeah, you mentioned the Miracle Morning movie. That's pretty fun. That came out, a year or so ago, but that is on at miraclemorningmovie.com. In fact, miraclemorning.com is the hub for everything. But the newest thing, which I'm really excited about, is the Miracle Morning app. I have been asked to create an app for, close to a decade, right? Like, is there an app? Where's the app, right? And there's been knockoff apps, like really cheesy little apps. Anyway, we finally launched the Miracle Morning app for Android and for Apple. We had 10,000 users the first month. And, so that's really, really exciting. It launched in January. But yeah, so check out the Miracle Morning app. It's $5 and we're about to add a journaling feature, an affirmations creator, guided sale, all sorts of different features.
That's awesome. I'm going to make sure that's linked in the show notes as well. But as mentioned, I have one last question for you. It might seem like a simple one, but it's probably the biggest one I'm asking all day. If Hal impacts as many people as he wants to impact, lives to whatever year he wants to live to, does everything that he wants in this life, but everyone you've impacted can only remember you for one thing, what would that one thing be? And let me just clarify, in regards to like a piece of advice.
Piece of advice. Okay, got it. Piece of advice. You are limitless. I think that's it. And I know I'm not, that's not trademarked. That's not unique to me. I'm sure other people have said that. But that's just what came up for me, right? Like I would, if I was branding it, I would say, oh, wake up to your full potential. It's the miracle morning, right? But no, I think that's it. You are limitless, right? And for us to own that, because from that paradigm, we can do anything. And if our paradigm is I am limited, then so is what we can do. So if we want to make the biggest impact in the world, if we want to create the life of our dreams, I think it stems from that belief and that paradigm that, yes, I am limitless and I'm going to go prove it.
Yeah. And you have done that through your story, your work, your journey. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So Hal, I definitely appreciate it. Just reiterating that all of websites, socials, apps, all that good stuff will be in the show notes. But Hal, thank you so much for this opportunity, man.
Matt, it is an honor, brother. Thank you for having me.
Born in 92 on the block with the Sharks. Come from a different cloth, y'all would get ripped apart. You want a diamond, then you gotta get it in the dark. We dropping nuggets like Carmelo went to Rucker Park. Now we eating from state to state.